Why do we fall, sir? So that we can learn to pick ourselves back up.
Good advice.
You're welcome.
Hey guys, this is Bravebud TV, and this is the place to be for bite-sized actions to get super badass results with your mindset and productivity. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to get yourself out of a rut. This is going to be a really beneficial episode for anyone who's feeling like maybe their motivation or their energy levels have kind of spiraled out of control maybe for the last few months. And you're maybe finding yourself in a bit of a dark spot where you're not quite where you know that you can be. You know there are things that you should do. There's a performance level that you usually do things at, but you're just not quite there. Maybe your mental health isn't where it used to be. Maybe your physical health isn't where it used to be. This is going to be a great episode to help you turn things around and start to see some progress in your life. We're going to specifically talk about what exactly is going on in your brain that causes you to spiral out of control. We'll then discuss specifically what patterns that you can start to change up in your mind to take control of your life and see some progress. And then finally, I have 8 bite-sized actions that are really simple that you can start using. I've used them again and again in my life to help get myself out of some of the ruts that I've been in.
Now let's get started by letting me give you a little bit of a scenario of what my life is all about.
But I've also coached thousands of leaders and employees to use these 8 bite-sized steps to help them transform their performance. So I've seen them work for myself, for others, and I truly believe they're going to help you today. I should also mention that we'll have a bit of fun with those 8 bite-sized steps. I actually found a scene in a movie, Dark Knight Rises, which is a Batman movie. You may have seen it, you may not have, but there's a fantastic scene that actually relates really well to being in a rut or a hole in Bruce Wayne's case, and finding your way out of that.
My soul is as ready to escape as my body.
All right, let's talk about what is going on in your brain that causes you to get yourself into a rut. When you better understand this, you're going to be able to stop and see some of these patterns pop up, and you'll be able to correct and interrupt some of these behaviors that are being destructive and causing you to get into a rut. So there are 3 different regions in your brain. And for this video, I've called them the fight or flight region, the feeling region, and the thinking region. Let's talk about them in a little bit more detail. Each region actually releases neurotransmitters and chemicals throughout the body that affect your emotional states. So we'll first talk about the fight or flight region. So this region is all about protecting you, helps you survive. When you think about this region, it's like your basic instincts. For example, if somebody's running towards you with a gun, you have an automatic instinct to probably run away from them. You can probably put yourself in that scenario. You can visualize somebody running towards you right now. You'll start to feel some of the adrenaline and cortisol go through your body as you experience that, if you visualize it well enough. This controls your behavior. It controls the next steps that you take to probably run away. It's important that we have this part of the brain naturally operating to keep us alive. And most of the time, our patterns and results of these different external stimuli are from past experiences in some cases in life, like when you're a child and maybe you put your hand on the stove for the first time and you realize it's hot. Well, you're never going to do that again. You've learned that pattern. You've linked it up in this part of the brain that this thing can hurt me. So for the most part, we're not going to talk too much about making any adjustments to that part of the brain. We want that operating as its best self as it normally does. Where you're probably struggling is either in the feeling part of the brain or the thinking part. So when we think about the feeling part, there are a couple different chemicals that can be released in this area of the brain. So those would be things like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, or just a few examples that get released in the body. So when we think about dopamine, we usually get releases of dopamine when something pleasurable is offered to us. So this could be like a reward, or maybe it's a like on Facebook, or maybe it's an extra subscriber on your YouTube channel, or maybe that next episode of Netflix pops up and says, do you want to watch this? And you go, yes, and you click it. You're getting hits of dopamine released in your body.
Oh, me so horny. Me love you long time.
So the problem with this is a lot of the times, the things that actually give us the biggest hits of dopamine are the easiest to get. They're right at our fingertips. They're destructive behaviors, like say scrolling on social media for hours, where you're getting all kinds of dopamine hits when you're doing that. And usually the end result is you're pretty lazy and you're probably not taking action on too many things. And so you start to see yourself spiraling out of control, ending up in a bit of a rut and not feeling very good. Well, all these different behaviors start to stack up on top of each other. And they actually create patterns in the brain where you start just naturally doing certain behaviors because you've conditioned yourself to start doing those. One of the problems with this region of the brain is that it can actually take control of your thinking processes over your logical thinking brain, which we'll talk about now. So another reason that you could be struggling and be in a rut is because consciously there are thoughts that you're saying to yourself on a regular basis, and they're quite negative. It could be negative self-talk, or maybe you have a bunch of limiting beliefs that you've put up as a barrier for yourself. You could be saying things like, you know what, I'm too old to be able to do this. I can't do this because of this event in the past and how it affected me. You have all this long line of limiting beliefs that you keep telling yourself, and you're telling yourself that story, and it keeps dragging you down into the rut. No matter what you do, you can't seem to break through these limiting beliefs that you're telling yourself. So this is your thinking brain that is taking control. But the good news with both your thinking brain and your feeling brain, there are ways that we can rewire the circuitry in there, just like you would upgrade a phone, like we talked about in episode 1 of this series. We have 6 great bite-sized actions in that episode, which you can watch and see, that I think would be a great benefit for you. And then we have the 8 bite-sized actions that we're going to talk about today, right now. So as I mentioned earlier, these 8 bite-sized actions I have used again and again in my life to help me through some of the ruts I've been through. And I have taught these to thousands of leaders to help with coaching their employees to transform their performance. And we're going to have some fun. As I mentioned, there is a movie called The Dark Knight Rises, which has Christian Bale in it, who plays Bruce Wayne. And there's a scene where Bruce Wayne actually fights this evil villain. His name is Bane, and he loses. His back is broken, his body is beaten up, and Bane places him in a hole, which is referred to as hell on earth.
There's a reason why this prison is the worst hell on earth. Hope. Every man who was rotted here over the centuries has looked up to the light and imagined climbing to freedom. So easy. So simple. Unlike shipwrecked men turning to seawater from uncontrollable thirst. Many have died trying. I learned here that there can be no true despair without hope.
So these 8 bite-sized actions I'm about to talk to actually relate to some of the things that he starts to do in this scene. But they're also very relatable to you and what you're going through. So let's kick it off with action number 1. Action number 1 is to take ownership, to take accountability of where you are. It's to get grounded. You're in a really tough spot, and you need to get real with yourself and take responsibility for the fact that you've ended up here because of typically your behaviors, your actions, things that you've done that have caused you to spiral out of control. This step is actually the most important step out of all 8 of them, because most people actually struggle with just getting past this first bite-sized step. A lot of people will point the finger and say, I am this way because of the way my father spoke to me or the way he treated me when I was younger. I messed up this way because of this person or because of this event or because of something in the economy. We build up all these stories and we point the finger elsewhere, and we fail to ever say, wait a sec, I was in control in those situations. It was my responsibility to take ownership on how I responded in those circumstances. My bite-sized action for you is to pause this video, or maybe afterwards, you say something like this. I am responsible for where I am. I know where I am. I know this is not where I should be, and I'm going to take action. I'm going to do what it takes to climb out of this hole and be a better person. All right, bite-sized action number 2 is drop kick your limiting beliefs. So as I mentioned earlier, there are typically some limiting beliefs that you keep telling yourself that are preventing you from moving forward. It's really important that you get clear on what limiting beliefs you keep repeating up in your brain. So for this bite-sized action, you're going to write down just one limiting belief that keeps getting in your way. Are you telling yourself something like, I'm too old to be able to do this? I don't have enough education to do this? What is that limiting belief that is standing in your way from you moving forward and climbing out of this rut? Then what you're going to do, step 2 of this, is you're going to write down the cause. What caused this limiting belief to form? It's a bit of a trick question in that part of the cause is probably your reaction, the way you're thinking about the limiting belief. So you'll write that down and get clear on it. Step number 3 to drop kicking your limiting beliefs is to get leverage. So wherever you are, you need to ask yourself the question, what happens if I don't change? What happens if I keep thinking this way about this limiting belief? Write that down and get really clear on your leverage. Build that up to the point where you have no choice but to change. And then the final step to drop kicking your limiting beliefs is to write down some of the facts. There are other people who are probably struggling with this exact same limiting belief. Look it up. Build up some facts that show you that, wait a sec, it is definitely possible for me to move forward from this. Other people who are maybe this age have done this. Other people with similar education have done this. This shouldn't be a limiting belief. Sometimes people will say, well, it's completely impossible. No one can do this. I want to encourage you to believe that in many cases, the impossible is made possible. Be the first person to make it possible. In 1954, Roger Bannister was the first person to run 1 mile in under 4 minutes. Everyone always said before that time that it wasn't possible. They said it couldn't be done. When he finally did it, all of a sudden you had many people doing it after him because they believed it was possible. Over 1,400 people have now run the 4-minute mile. So the same thing happens to Bruce Wayne when he's down in that hole in the jail. He's told that it's not possible for you to get out of this hole. No one has made the climb.
I told you it could not be done.
So he's given a limiting belief right away. He also sees somebody trying to get out, trying to make the climb, and they fail. So pretty quickly, he's built up a limiting belief and doesn't believe that this is even possible. But then somebody else tells him in the jail, wait a sec, there's actually one person who has done it. It was actually a little girl who climbed her way out of that hole. So all of a sudden, you see his belief change instantly when he hears that one story. So find your one story. Find that person who's made it through this limiting belief. We also have a whole exercise about this in our book, Bravebud, Bite-Sized Actions for Super Badass Results. It's called Dropkick Your Limiting Beliefs. And you can see the space right there where you can write down the limiting beliefs, the leverage, and some of the facts all in this exercise in our book. Next up, let's talk about bite-sized action number 3 for today. So this is what's your kryptonite. So you've taken accountability for where you're at, for the rut that you're in, and you said, hey, I can take control of this. I can find my way out of this rut. You've started to drop kick some limiting beliefs in your life. This step is all about getting clear on what kryptonite keeps pulling you back down. A lot of the times we're going to make several steps forward and then we'll have several steps back because we're encountering kryptonite that causes us to fall back into our old patterns. Usually when you're trying to change a habit, you'll do something really well for a few weeks and then you start to break that habit and you fall back into old patterns. It takes quite a long time to start to form habits that help you move in the right direction. So get really clear on those and write down all the things that are your kryptonite. There's actually also an exercise in our book that's called What's Your Kryptonite, where you write out all the things that keep hurtling you downwards towards that rut. On to bite-sized action number 4, which is called Visualize the Future. Visualization is something that is used by some of the best athletes. Michael Jordan would actually picture himself shooting that last shot of the game right at the buzzer and hitting it in that championship game. He would visualize it so vividly that it would feel like he was actually in the action of doing that. So for this bite-sized action, you're going to take some time each and every single day to visualize what it feels like to have your energy levels feeling strong, to have motivation, to be working towards a goal that you actually care about. You write down all these different things that you want to visualize of that ideal state that you want to get to. All right, bite-sized action number 5 for today is discipline equals motivation momentum. So if you want to start to see some progress, you need to start to develop some habits that help you move in the right direction. I usually say start small. Just set one simple thing, like maybe it's waking up at a certain time. Wake up at 6 a.m. And you try to do that each and every single day consistently throughout the week. It might not be that, it could be something else, whatever it might be to help you move in a positive direction. Keep it as simple as possible. Just start with one. Maybe the first week you only do it half the time, so you have 50% success rate. While the next week work towards a 60 or 70% success rate. As you start to build up that momentum, you're going to find it easier and easier to be able to do the actions that you set out for yourself in this step, and you're going to find that your momentum is going to start moving in the right direction. This leads me to action number 6, which is actually completely related to that. It's called action stacking. What you want to do for this bite-sized action is, as you start to see some progress with that 1 or 2 or 3 habits that you've put into place, you're going to start to increase the load. Just like when you're exercising and say you're lifting weights, you might start off with 10 pounds and 10 reps one week, and then you'll start to move it up maybe to 15 pounds in a couple weeks after that. This is all about just stacking additional weight, additional actions onto what you're doing. This could also be simplified to something like, say you have a messy house. Rather than thinking about cleaning up your entire house, start with something simple, like maybe an end table or maybe your dining table that needs to be cleaned, and just clean that one thing, look at it, appreciate it, and then maybe you feel after that like doing more. Maybe you feel like cleaning a bathroom or a room, and what you'll start to find is you'll start to build up some momentum just by action stacking. Key with this one is to start really small and then just start to build in increments. We can see the exact same thing happen for Bruce Wayne. His back is broken. He has a vertebrae that's sticking out. So he has to start off by just hanging by this rope that the prison doctor sets him up with. So he first has to fix his back, and then once it's finally feeling a bit better, he starts walking. And then from there, he starts working out. He starts doing push-ups. He starts doing pull-ups until he feels strong enough in his mind that he can go for his first climb up that wall. Now, unfortunately, he fails and he has a setback, which can happen. And that brings me to bite-sized action number 7, which is fuck the F word. Fuck failure. Make failure fun again for yourself. So often we fear failure so much that we don't even take action because of those fears that we've built up about it. You're going to fail. You're going to have setbacks. Embrace those and learn from those. You have to change your mindset in this way and actually start to think of failure in a positive way. We have another exercise in our book, which is called Fuck the F Word, where we have some fun with calling it different things, not necessarily failure, but maybe calling it something like FUBAR, fucked up beyond all recognition, or hey, I shit the fan on that one, didn't I? You're essentially just poking fun at failure. It happens, it's okay, and the hope is that you're able to move forward from it, embrace it, learn from it, and grow even stronger from it. Our final bite-sized action for today is called Don't Dwell on the Well. This bite-sized action is for when you finally find yourself in a place where you feel back to normal, where you feel good again about yourself. So often what we can do is actually look back at where we've been and dwell on the past. We go, was a horrible event, and we can't get it out of our head, so we keep looking back. What usually ends up happening is that where your focus goes, so will you. So if you keep looking back at this event and you keep letting it pull you back down, all that progress you made to get back to normal is only going to hurt you because you're dwelling on the well. When you eventually get to this bite-sized action, what I want you to do is actually focus on how can I help others? How can I inspire others who've maybe gone through something similar to me? How can I write about this in a way that helps others and inspires others rather than me seeking for sympathy because I went through all these hard times? So many people who find their way back into the rut are the people who look for sympathy. They share their story and are hoping that people feel bad for them. things that we see Bruce do as he gets out of the hole, he doesn't really look back, but what he does do is he throws a rope down to all the other prisoners so that they can also climb out of the well. As he was climbing out, everyone was chanting this phrase, which translates to rise. So what I'll end off with for this episode is rise up from where you are. Start taking some of these bite-sized actions and implementing them into your life. I know it can seem tough at first, and it can seem like there's no way out of this dark place that you might be in. But rise and one day be the person who shares your story and inspires others who've been through something similar to you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you haven't seen Motivation 101, that is the first episode of this entire series. You can actually click right here and you can see the video. We also have 4 more episodes coming in this motivation series. So you're going to want to make sure that you kick that subscribe button and boop that notifications bell so that you won't miss some of the future episodes that will be released. Thank you guys for joining me, and as always, have yourself a super badass day.